I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my business partner, colleague, and friend, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and is the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 237th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. I still always want to say investing in dummies, but this is where we talk about the markets, what we're investing in, and because there's a lot, some of the crazy that's going on around the world. I hope everyone is well. Mr. Hodge, first and foremost, before we set it off, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Gerardo. We're back from Beaver Creek, where we were in person last week, back at the desks. You got your Fed meeting. It was as expected. If you've been listening to the things we say on this podcast and write about in our letters, I'm sure we'll dive into that. But excited that fall's here. As I told you before, one of my favorite times. So I'm glad to be heading into that. What about you?
I'm doing well. We're in the middle of a playoff run, so we got the third wild card position right now. We're a half a game up. We have about 11 games left, so pressure's on, right? This is when you either earn the playoffs or you get to get an early vacation. So I'm hoping it's not an early vacation. I look forward to being in Chicago for some playoff games this year. It's been a few years since we contended. Good to have a team that's competing this time of the year, and really looking forward to seeing if we could put a nice little run together. We had a tough last 7 games or so, but we've played really well most of the season, so got faith in the guys. We'll see. Other than that, life is great. The wife still loves me. Kids still love me. Everybody's well. Everybody's healthy, and I'll take that every day of the week.
Beauty.
Well, let's get right into it. You touched on the Fed decision. We got to talk about that a little bit. No surprises there. Again, if you've been listening to the podcast, folks, I thought the little bit that I saw of the press conference, and we were in Beaver Creek all week last week, and again, we talked about what we thought was going to happen, but I thought that the press conference was a little bit of a shit show, and excuse the language up top, everybody, but it was a bit of a shit show, and the markets today are reacting that way, the overall indices anyhow, and so couldn't help but notice the Nasdaq's down almost a couple of percent, the Dow's down almost 400 points, the dollar's looking healthy again, still around that 105 level. Thoughts on not the decision, but the press conference, and then let's look forward a little bit, because it's easy for us to get on here every week and Monday Night Quarterback and tell you how right we were about uranium or lithium bottoming or the Fed's decision. But, as the saying goes, right, as the great Wayne Gretzky once said, let's talk about where the puck is going. Where's the puck going as far as the Fed rate decisions go?
I mean, you're going to have to get another hike, or else the Fed's going to lose all credibility, which they're starting to lose now, which is a result of the meeting that you were talking about, right? And so you've got a Jerome Powell who is now coming off as disingenuous, because he stood up there in previous meetings and says that he's data dependent and they're sticking to their mandate, and they're going to continue to stick to that 2% inflation target. And yet, as we've been saying and talking about with oil back at $90, the inflation is going back up. And sure enough, the last CPI was at 3.7%, and he had to stand up there and tell the market essentially, why he's not hiking despite inflation being twice his target and now going in the wrong direction. And so, he left the door open to future hikes. Wasn't really entirely hawkish or dovish, but did say their policy could be higher for longer, and left the door open to more hikes. I think you're going to have to see that. I've written a bunch of times saying that you'll likely see another hike, and that will catalyze a recession. It will cause that last shoe to drop, which is a weakened employment and a weakened consumer. And then you'll get the recession that an inverted yield curve has now been predicting since March of 2022. Market reaction was interesting. So, previous to this meeting, the market was pricing in 1 or more cuts, potentially up to 3 cuts in the market, in the Fed interest rate next year, 2024.
Yep.
Now it's not pricing in 3, it's pricing in like 1, and not until September. So the cycle keeps getting pushed out. We'll see. I think you're going to have to get a hike sooner than later, especially as oil remains stubborn at $90. But the markets didn't like it, right? Reality is becoming reality. I mean, you're sort of painted yourself into a corner at this point. You're going to hike, and then things are going to break further, and I guess I'll pinch it off there and not drone on. But these regional banks and employers are in a tight spot with 5% interest rates.
Yeah, look, you got 10 years, 4.49. You got, 30-year mortgage rates. I'm in the midst of buying a property here, an investment property. And look, if you take a mortgage on, that's 8%, right? And so I think we're absolutely in for a correction in the overall indices. I will issue my disclaimer is that I don't really meddle much in the overall indices or at all, if I'm being honest. I'm strictly resource stocks with few exceptions, and even those companies are somehow tied into the resource space, like Mine Up Technologies, which is digitizing the commodity supply chain, but obviously has inroads towards all markets, right? We had a great conversation with Executive Chairman Vince Sirachi last week, and he mentioned that, the market is wide open. It's not going to be just commodities, but because of the relationships in the business that they have with the Sumitomos, with the Codelcos, with some of the bigger companies, that's where they're starting. And look, they're probably a year away from being revenue positive, which again is the holy grail for miners. We've talked about this before. So yeah, long-winded way of saying I think there's more pain in the overall indices. I think, what does that mean for gold? What does that mean for copper? I think it means in the short term, you're probably going to see some softness, right? You have a dollar index that's at 105.50. It looks like it wants to go to 106. Despite that gold, again, I keep saying it every week and we sound like broken records, it's holding up beautifully. We're still at 1920, 6-7% away from all-time highs, despite a dollar index that wants to go to 106. So it's definitely interesting times. Copper's pulled back to the 366 level. It's going to be closer to 350, I think, than 4 for the next month or two. I think that presents an opportunity for those of you like myself that are copper bulls in the mid to long term. A lot of really, really, really good opportunities out there if you have capital that can be patient and capital that you're willing to allocate without looking for an immediate return.
And particularly on the gold side. So, those interest rates you just mentioned, the 10-year above 4% and the 2-year above 5%, the highest it's been since 2007, is certainly typically a headwind for gold. And now people are saying what I and you have been saying is that gold has held up really well despite that strong dollar and the rates that you were mentioning. And so, these pullbacks in gold do present a good buying opportunity to get long, because next year you're going to see a reversal and gold is going to finally break through that $2,000 level. So definitely be using these pullbacks as we get gyrations in the market because of higher interest rates to do get positioned for sure.
You have to gyrate if you want to get positioned properly, y'all. That's just the way that it goes. I'm going to give y'all a free name this week. I'm biased. I'm a shareholder. I think we're both shareholders, if I'm not mistaken, Nick, but I certainly wrote a check in the initial round. It's a company I really like. I really like the CEO. It's Kingsman Resources. If you want good silver gold exposure in a brownfield district scale silver gold system, look at Kingsman Resources. It's a company that will be drilling here in Q4. Long-term committed shareholders like myself, like yourself, I believe, Nick, and several people close to us that have pretty significant holdings, tightly held. It's pulled back from the 40-cent level down to 21 cents Canadian. I think the market cap, the last time I looked at it, and actually I'll look at it right now, it's down to $4 million. This is a past producing property. It's a district that's never been consolidated. This is the first time that this district will ever be explored in a systematic way with the entire district under one banner. And so I'm excited for the drilling. They're targeting a couple of 100 million ounces of silver. They know the metallurgy is relatively straightforward because it's a past producing district, as I mentioned. It's got some attractive gold credits and multiple types of systems, which I think speaks to the potential for extensive mineralization, right? It's high-grade vein, CRD, and skarn potential. So that's your freebie for the week. I'm talking my book because I own it. Haven't sold a share, don't plan on selling a share. That's one of my silver gold positions that I plan on riding through this next gold cycle, which I believe, again, I still insist the market will front run and it'll happen before year end. But look, I've been wrong about things and will continue to be wrong about things timing wise because nobody has a crystal ball. Patriot should be at 25, Patriots at 11.50, $12. It's fine. It'll happen when it happens. If Kingsman hits on the exploration side, and I believe it will, we'll be off to the races. So we'll be really happy subscribers and shareholders.
Do you have any insight on timeline for drilling there?
I believe the next month and a half. So they should be good to go. They've been adding to the land package, and so that's kind of delayed a bit. Getting those drills turning. The last thing you want to do is kind of tip your hand and start drilling and hit something while you're negotiating, with vendors on extensions of the land package. So that, I believe, is behind us. And so the next move is let's get some drills going.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Thoughts on the copper space? I gave my 2 cents.
Thoughts on the copper space? A nice long downward candle on that space today that is closer to, I think I actually got it up. I was just looking. Yeah, 360, which is sort of the August lows, and everything kind of went back to the August lows on the back of this Fed meeting. Every sector of the S&P was down, and commodities softened a bit, including oil. It's the same answer I would tend to give you. I'm a long-term copper bull. The short term, I'm not so keen. So between now and whenever this economic cycle does come to an end, you'll want to start buying your BHPs and your Rios and your Vales. And I obviously have written checks into copper speculations that are longer, medium to long-term holds that won't go anywhere in my portfolio, some of which are recommended in Hodge Family Office, and including companies like Aldebaran Resources, for example. So, which is getting rather cheap, not quite to the level I'd buy it in the open market, but a few cents above it. And so, if you're looking at less liquid, more speculative plays, you can be pecking away at those when you have the opportunity, like you're seeing now on these days where copper pulls back sharply. And if you're talking about more liquid, safer plays, then you likely have 6 months to accumulate those at will.
Everybody knows my favorite. I actually don't think it's high risk. You're just going to have to wait a little bit while Peru gets its permitting house in order. But my favorite copper speculation is Hannon Metals. Again, I firmly believe we had a good conversation, you and I did, with Mr. Michael Hudson of Hannon down at Beaver Creek. And, he's convinced privately and publicly that this is going to be, he said, discoveries, the biggest discoveries of his career. It's just a matter of securing those permits. I know there's been a delay on the JOGMEX side, the $35 million joint venture they have with the Japanese government. That should now take another 3 to 4 months, is what we heard in Beaver Creek, meaning that Valiente, the 100% owned portion that everybody is gung-ho about, that has 18 porphyry copper gold centers, that's probably about a year away. Other catalysts in the works behind the scenes. I know the company is looking at battery metals projects. Michael Hudson, Mark Saxon, Blair Way, that group has been, involved with each other in some form of capacity for decades and have one of the most significant databases of properties, mineral properties around the world. It's how Michael Hudson was able to put together the 1,000+ square kilometers of a copper, gold, silver basin that, again, I believe is going to be, one day a billion or multi-billion dollar company. It sits there with a market cap of about 22 million right now. So you do the math, do the multiplication, and damn right I have millions of shares that I'm holding until we start seeing those drills turning and we get the price up in dollars and not cents.
Yeah, that's when you can set a limit order on. I was telling you about another company I won't mention here that I was doing that with, and I just keep a limit order set, and when shares get super cheap, even though it's super illiquid, I fill a couple thousand whenever they're available at that price that I want. I was actually looking at Hannon today and thinking about doing the same, because on the U.S. side of things, let me just bring it up real quick. That's not how you spell it. Yeah, it's down to 15 cents. I mean, it's three pennies above a 52-week low, and has dipped to 13 cents on the U.S. side twice this month. So, why wouldn't you set a limit order at 12.5 or 13 cents and just let that ride and fill whenever you get a risk off sentiment, I guess, is what I was going to say. And then I was going to parlay that into a broader market comment, is that, look, this VIX has been depressed for a long, long time. And August was a wonky month in the broad markets, but then it sort of restabilized, and here you're back with a risk-on sentiment in late September heading into October. And I know you put October surprise on there, and I was telling you last week I had that, that guttural feeling that we were in for a rough couple of weeks of the market. And so what happens, and I've explained this before, is that when volatility ticks up, even on the broad-based equities, ever so slightly, what that does, it opens the price range on things, right? And so copper is more susceptible to swings, and of course these juniors are more susceptible to wider price swings, which they're inherently susceptible to anyway. And so you'll get a day where Hannon flashes down to 12 cents on the U.S. side, but 3 days later it's back up at 15, 16, 17 cents. So by having that limit order set, you're filling it as this volatility picks up, and you have any wider price movements to the downside.
I would caution on having limit sell orders, because there are manipulators on illiquid stocks that will hit your sell just to drive the price down and take your shares, folks. So very, very cautious with illiquid stocks and limit sell orders, because those can get triggered and hit really, really quickly.
Yeah, I'm talking about buys to accumulate and build a position. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's I'm really short on Patriot. A lot of you always reach out about Patriot. Talk about it every week. I will until it's bought out, or it's $40 or $50. But the short version is no news. The AGM meeting went as planned. The omnibus plan was scrapped. Thankfully, the company did the right thing, and that's all I'll say. Because if there wasn't news this week, I expect by the time you all listen to this, it's on. I think the news will start coming. I've said September is going to be a month of surprises. We haven't had any yet on company-specific side, but we've definitely had some on the macro side, with M&A increasing in the lithium space despite declining spot prices. So just get ready. I think it's going to be a fun rest of the year, folks. I'll leave it there. I think anybody that's paid attention to the stock and the story knows the conversations that are being had behind the scenes, knows all the majors are interested, knows that we as shareholders have enough votes with long-term sticky shares that aren't for sale to block any hostile takeover that comes in under the price that we want. And we got 160 million in the till, with more coming in from warrants before year end. 7 rigs turning, trying to get that up to 10. Share price sucks right now. It'll be up. Don't worry about it. Do what you have to do. Sell a couple of thousand shares here and there if you have to make ends meet, and that's what I'm doing anyway, and keeping the bulk of that position intact. With the exception being if, again, a tuition bill, a tax bill, opportunity for a really attractive financing comes in at a pre-IPO stage, like one that we're writing check for right now, both you and I, which I won't disclose yet. But in that case, I'll sell a little bit here and there, because I think that's an easy tenfold opportunity. So that's your Patriot update. Get ready, folks. I think we'll have news soon. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be great.
And just quickly on the share price, I mean, quick glance at the chart, it's bounced off that sort of 1050 level a couple of times.
Yeah.
Which was initially resistance last December, right? It ran up to 1050 and then pulled all the way back to just under 6, which is where it started the year. So context is important. It's started the year below $6 and it's still an $11 stock. So is nearly up 100% for the year, but of course did go to almost 18. And so I just wanted to mention that 1050 looks like it's trying to form support there. And also just caution, because I see some comments, including in this Bizarro World, about watching the share price go down, which, it's down for the past 3 months, but from all-time highs, is that the person was lamenting parking their money in there. I think that was the phrase. And so just took issue with that phrase, because if you're parking your money in a TSXV stock, I'm not sure how much you parked, but that phrase to me is, you park your money in a money market fund. You park your money in a savings account. You don't park your money in a TSXV traded anything. So, caution, dear reader or watcher.
Listen, I have a buddy that bought I think almost $1 million at. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. Again, the context matters. He's made millions of dollars because, he came in with us on the 16-cent level and then participated subsequently in the 34-cent level, and then was able to retire, in part thanks to Patriot, and had extra cash from, a 401k. And, he bought almost $1 million worth at $13, right? And he could care less because he knows exactly what he has, right? We've had the conversations, we've done the comps. What I'm trying to explain is you got to have an exit strategy, and you got to know what you own. And if you know what you own in this case, this is going to be short term. I'm glad that you mentioned where the stock started the year and what resistance was, and that it now looks like support. Because again, your comment was spot on, Nick. The next thing that happened once it broke out last time was it made new all-time highs. And I think that's right around the corner. Expect a flurry of news between now and year end, folks. The quiet period is done. And again, for those of you that are upset that it's down 30, 40, 50% since Albemarle wrote a check, one, be happy they took the 150 million at those levels. Now they don't have to finance for the next couple of years. And two, it can go and add value. Again, context. It's taken $45 million to get it to where it's at today. What do you think 150 million is going to do if it's all going to drilling?
Well, yeah. And in the global context too, I saw someone tweeted a chart, it was yesterday, of, like the largest resource stage lithium deposits. And their company was Frontier, I think, and it was number 12 or something. And I just started looking up the list, and, I got up to Corvette, and I was looking at the surrounding company, and it's like all those other companies are multi-billion-dollar companies, right? So or have offers on the table to be acquired for same. So that tells you a lot.
I don't want to keep repeating myself. You all know how I feel. Again, know what you own, know why you own it. You got to be accountable for your wins and your losses, folks, the gains and the losses. We can give you opinions, thoughts, recommendations, and advice, but at the end of the day, only you cash the checks and only you take the losses. So I don't complain to you when I lose. I don't share with you when I win, outside of my advice and my perspective. And, that's just the way it goes. Big boy and big girl game out here.
Yes, sir.
Got to talk uranium, talking about big boys and big girls. That train is leaving the station. I didn't author an editorial this week. I actually copy and pasted from the last issue of JRM, which went out, in the beginning of the month prior to this run up. And to make a long story short, I pontificated. I'm using that word today. I pontificated that the move from 60 to 70 would be a lot quicker than the move from 50 to 60. And that's absolutely been the case. We're a couple of bucks away from the $70 level. Macro-wise, things are lining up. The catalysts are materializing. The utilities are still being a bit stubborn, which means they're going to be happy to pay 90 and $100 and put a floor at that level within the next 6 to 12 months is what I see coming for the uranium space. I think we're at 90 to $100 in the next 6 to 12 months. And then I think we overshoot to 200. I said it last week when we recorded in Beaver Creek. Whether or not that happens, just give me $100 uranium, and every company in the uranium portfolio, most are already up triple digits because we've owned them for a bit and positioned well ahead of time. But all of those companies will be triple and quadruple digit winners in this next cycle higher, and it looks primed. If you haven't yet positioned yourself with quality uranium names, pick your risk tolerance, pick the sector you want to speculate on, whether it's producers or high risk, high reward explorers. Let's establish a position, folks, because it's going to be a fun ride in the uranium space. And that ride is starting right now. The tickets for that ride are being sold as we speak. This is not in 6 months. This is not in 12 months. We're on the ride. So jump on board. It's going to be profitable.
You pontificate. I'll proselytize. There is
I get for trying to use 4-syllable words, folks.
There is, not a lot of new developments other than price movement, right? Catching up to the fundamentals that have been on the board for a long time. And so it's interesting because it's like shark attacks, right? There'll be bandwagon jumping, and it'll seem like uranium is much more popular than it is because there'll be, people jumping on the bandwagon and more headlines written about it. And to that end, what did I see this week? Last week I saw Italy wanted to add a nukes. This week I saw the U.S. Navy was looking into, using nuclear reactors on ships because the technology is opening up. And I thought to myself, the technology is opening up. You've had them on fucking submarines for decades. Like, what are you talking about? No, like the narrative is just changing now. You've literally had sailors in metal tubes underwater with them for decades. Now the technology is opening up? I don't think so. The technology is just becoming more widely accepted. And so you'll see it more widely adopted and supported. And, that's what makes bull markets. Oh, did I freeze on your side, Gerardo?
Is the Fed trying to clip us again? Is that what's going on? No, I think
don't
we're
know.
all right this week. I don't think it's Jerome. Yep. I think we're good. A couple of weeks ago, obviously, I had some issues there with the internet connection. It coincided with me criticizing one of our main branches of government. So I speculated that it was them, but it was not. I was joking, folks. Just internet went down for a little bit. No. I think we're good to go. I didn't mean to cut you off. It wasn't me in this case. It was the internet. But where were you with that last part of that statement?
Oh, I was just saying that the narrative hasn't changed with uranium. The fundamentals were the fundamentals. Now the price is just catching up, and you'll see that bandwagon jump in. I was talking about the U.S. Navy saying that they now want to start using the nuclear reactors on ships because the technology is opening up, and how that that makes for a good headline. But the nuclear technology has been available for decades, and so it's not that the technology has changed; it's just that they're able to get more support for it now, and that's what makes for bull markets as more people accept that the technology is real and deployable.
Real and deployable. You know what's real and deplorable in Texas right now?
Oh, gosh. A couple of things. The grid, the attorney general, the border. What else?
There's quite a bit. Listen, I love Austin. I love Round Rock. I love Georgetown. I love most of what Texas has to offer. The politicians on both sides leave a lot. They make it hard to be a voter. Let me just put it that way, right? As frustrated as everybody is with the national political scene, I'm not going to get into it. The local, the statewide political scene is just as trash. And when we talk about the grid, and you mentioned the grid, and we talk about the politicians, and the amount of corruption that exists is it's not even being telegraphed anymore. It's a big middle finger to voters that are actually paying attention. And, I'm not going to talk Ken Paxton, but just Google Ken Paxton, who, by the way, was acquitted by his buddies. And despite the fact that his best friend, one of his best buddies testified against him, saying that he was taking bribes. He was using an office to take bribes. Just messy. And again, he's still under investigation for a host of other things, including fraud and a number of other things, I believe. You guys can Google Ken Paxton. The one that got me was ERCOT. ERCOT is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, right? You would think these are the fine men and women that are meant to safeguard our grid. And you would be correct. That is actually their mission. Their mission is to make sure things function smoothly, that we plan ahead of time, that our infrastructure is sound, and that we don't have to have the potential for rolling blackouts, not just in summer, but also in winter during winter storms. That's actually their mandate. That's what they're designed and built to do. So when I hear, if you don't get rich with uranium and you haven't got rich with lithium, folks, and you don't believe you can get rich with copper and gold, just be a Bitcoin miner in Texas, because the state of Texas will go ahead, or ERCOT, the grid, will go ahead and pay you as a Bitcoin miner $31.7 million, which is exactly what it did. It paid it to a company called Riot, R-I-O-T, $31.7 million in energy credits to not mine Bitcoin. You know who didn't get an energy credit for conserving energy? This guy. You know who else didn't get an energy credit? The almost 28 million Texans who saw their utility bill spike as a result of this shortage of energy and what was ultimately deemed to be a bottleneck in the delivering of said energy. So $31.7 million, Nick, is what this Bitcoin miner it was paid to conserve energy. They went ahead and, shut down their Bitcoin mining operation. And so, look, it made more in energy credit than August Riot did than it did from actual Bitcoin mining, or than it does from actual Bitcoin mining. So I say all that to say that the money, the politics, the corruption, it goes both ways. And just, we need some new blood, y'all. And I'm not calling it violence blood. We need new blood as in new ideas, fresh ideas. We need term limits. Our elected leaders can barely walk and talk, without freezing or falling or forgetting who they're hugging. Or it's getting bad out there right now. And I know we're in the midst of a fourth turning. I know we're, probably a good 6-7 years away from getting to the healthy part of it. But let's try to come together, folks, because it's not really worth it. I saw there was my brain is weird, right? So I saw there was a football game. It was a Patriots and Dolphins game. And, everybody's so tribal right now. And what ended up as a good time by this gentleman who was out there with his son and his wife, I believe, ends up turning into the gentleman being beat to death over a football game. This man died. He was swung on and held and hit, fell and hit his head, and he died over a football game. There's things I am willing to die for, folks.
That's certainly not a 300-pound man with a big skin.
Exactly. And I bring up the football game and the tribalism because it's extended now to our political dialogue and our political scenario. And there's so many more things that we have in common than actually divide us. And guess what? Even the things we don't have in common, if they do divide us, we can do it in a civil way. Agree to disagree. I wish you the best, and just keep it moving. Ugly scenario out there with the incident with the man was beat to death, and ugly scenario in the state of politics right now, and the amount of corruption that's allowed to exist. It needs to be a change. I know it'll happen eventually. I hope I'm around to see it. It would warm my heart and make me smile. And that's your Bizarro World rant of the week from me.
Good. I hadn't thoroughly read the article about Riot. I saw the headlines. That's a publicly traded company and been around for a while. One of their facilities is outside of Austin. We might actually be doing a video there in the not too distant future. And I'm not sure who WorkBot pays. That sounds like it's part of some sort of demand response program, which is, part of virtual power plants and smart grids and all of that. And it's interesting how some of these companies can make money. There was probably others who got paid to turn things off. And so it's part of this, new world of clean finance where you can get carbon credits and incentives and deductions, et cetera, right? And including some of which is coming soon from this Inflation Reduction Act. So all part of the game. But yeah, can certainly see how giving $30-some million to a company not to operate their business so they could make more money is could ruffle the feathers of some consumers who aren't getting sane.
While same consumers are being asked to conserve energy and being told that get ready for possibly a dark winter in one of the wealthiest states in the union. Unreal, folks. Unreal. What are you watching in the market this week? You know what I'm watching. Biggest holding, biggest consequential holding, core holding for a lot of subscribers that, have done extremely well and changed lives for. But watching Patriot news, I think it's game on. I mentioned it earlier. I expect a lot of it. So I'll be watching for that. What are you watching, Mr. Hodge?
I've done a bit of selling the past couple of weeks, anticipating a bit of softness, so bolstered the cash position. I am looking at gold. I think we're approaching another time to buy the dip ahead of the next rip. And I'm watching some of my speculations on the NASDAQ, because as I was talking about, this volatility opened up some downside price action, and I'm seeing, where the levels are I want to add, or if I want to stick with them. We're at a point now where the macro picture is as important as the individual company fundamentals. So I'm parsing through some of those speculations.
I like it. I'm supposed to remind all of you to go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe for all our updates, rantings, ravings from myself, the insights and wit and intellect from Mr. Hodge, and our talented group of editors. I hope everyone has a phenomenal week. I hope it's a profitable week. I hope it's a safe and healthy week for all of you out there. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was episode 237 of our weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. Y'all take care out there.
See ya.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.